Hello everyone. My name is Henry and today I will be speaking about the Protecting Tenants at Foreclosure Act of 2009. It looks like everyone is here. So let's get started. The Protecting Tenants at Foreclosure Act, or PTFA, was recently amended and it will be in effect until December 31, 2014.
What is the Protecting Tenants at Foreclosure Act?
The PTFA is a federal law that requires the new owner of a foreclosed property to give tenants a 90-day written notice to vacate before they can be removed from the property. But not all tenants are protected by the PTFA. The Act only applies to residential tenants. Also, in order to qualify for protection under the PTFA, you must be a bona fide tenant.
What is a bona fide tenant?
To be a bona fide tenant, you must meet several requirements. 1. You cannot be the person owing the mortgage and cannot be the parent, spouse, or child of the person owing the mortgage. 2. You must have a lease that was the result of an arm's length transaction. This means that you are not affiliated with or related to the landlord. 3. You must pay rent at a fair market value, which means your rent cannot be heavily discounted unless you receive subsidized housing from a government agency. Lastly, the tenant must be current on their rental payments.
Is being a bona fide tenant the only requirement?
No, the other factor is when the tenant signed their lease, if they have one.
What does it matter when the tenant signed their lease?
In order to be protected by the PTFA, the tenant must have signed their lease before a certain event takes place. The federal government recently amended the PTFA to clarify this factor. The Act states that the tenant must sign their lease before the notice of foreclosure. The PTFA clarified that the notice of foreclosure is the date on which complete title to the property is transferred to the new owner. In Florida, this date is when the certificate of title is issued to the new owner after the sale of the property. As long as the tenant entered into their lease before the notice of foreclosure, they are protected under the PTFA.
If someone qualifies under the PTFA, what kind of protection do they get?
Well, if they have a written lease, they will be able to remain on the property until the end of their lease unless the new owner intends to make the property their primary residence. If the new owner intends to make the property their primary residence, they must give the tenant a 90-day notice to vacate. If the tenant does not have a written lease, they would simply get a 90-day notice and would have to move out after the 90 days.
So if the new owner doesn't want to make the property their primary residence, the tenant can stay in the property for the remainder of the lease.
That is correct. But the tenant must continue to pay rent and abide by the conditions of their lease. If the tenant stops paying rent or breaks their lease, the landlord can evict them.
What if the tenant never receives a 90-day written notice and the new owner tries to move into the property and kick out the tenant?
The new owner must give the tenant a 90-day notice if they want to live in the property. If they fail to do so, they have violated the PTFA. If they violate the PTFA and obtain a court-ordered 24-hour writ of possession to try and kick out the tenant should contact an attorney immediately. The attorney may be able to assist them in setting aside the writ of possession.
What is a 24-hour writ of possession?
It is a court order that gives possession of the property to the owner. The writ will be posted on the residence and the tenant must vacate the premises within 24 hours.
What if the tenant cannot afford an attorney?
If the tenant cannot afford an attorney, they should visit their local legal aid office and see if they qualify for their services. Do you have any more questions? All right, thank you for your time.